Hey, welcome to 12 Tone. You know Billie Jean, right? I'm gonna assume you do. There's a lot to love about that song, but probably the most memorable thing is the bass. It's playing what's called a riff, a simple repeating pattern that drives the song forward and gives it a unique identity. Riffs are a huge part of modern music, found in songs as diverse as Enter Sandman, Superstition, and Feel Good Inc. I think I'm gonna be referencing a lot of songs in this video, so links in the description. Anyway, riffs can do a lot of work. They can fill gaps in the melody to keep the song moving when your singer's not singing, like in Smoke on the Water, or they can be the primary melody playing along with a singer like in Aqualung. But one of the most interesting things a riff can do is blend into the background. As you hear it over and over, you get used to it and it stops demanding mental energy. This lets it feel good under basically anything, so you're free to toss it into different sections to tie the song together. Take Billie Jean, for example. We first hear the riff in the intro, which lets us get used to it. Then the verse kicks in and the riff just keeps going. I mean, why stop? It fits. We drop it for the pre-chorus, but when the chorus comes in, we're right back at it. The melody is completely different, but it doesn't matter. The riff still works. In fact, because they blend so well, riffs even work great as backgrounds for soloing. They give you more freedom than a chord progression, because by the time you get to the solo, the audience is so used to the riff that pretty much anything will sound good over it. Well, within reason, of course. You need to be aware of what you're playing over, but you have a lot of freedom to experiment as long as you're paying some attention. But riffs are really just a modern take on a classical idea called an ostinato. This is, again, a repeated pattern, often in the lower end of the arrangement, over which the rest of the music changes and develops. You can find great examples of this in Pachelbel's Canon in D, or more recently, the theme from Jaws. Here, the music on top gets more and more complicated, introducing new lines, voices, and harmonies, while the ostinato pattern stays the same. It gives the piece a sense of grounding. No matter how out there the rest of it is, the ostinato will always be there, like an engine driving the composition. An extreme version of an ostinato is called a pedal, where the repeating pattern is a single note. Pedals again serve as grounding, this time rooting the music intrinsically to a tonal center. The pedal may not actually work with every chord you put on top of it, but that's okay. The repetition gives you that freedom. Again, some caution is necessary. If it sounds bad to you, your audience probably won't like it either, but don't be afraid to take risks. A lot of things work better than you'd expect over a pedal. But riffs aren't the only modern descendant of the ostinato. There's also the loop, popular in electronic music and hip-hop. These are a similar idea, but taken to an extreme. They're often the primary background for the whole song, and because they're electronically looped, they don't change at all. This gives you a huge amount of room to experiment with your lead parts, and it's one of the reasons that hip-hop's lyrical deliveries tend to be so rhythmically advanced. Of course, that's not to say you can't develop a loop. There's lots of ways to do that, building intensity like in Handlebars, or adding and removing layers like Point of No Return. You can also drop the beat, stopping the loop momentarily to accent a specific line, which, of course, you can do with riffs too. But no matter what, it's still the same underlying structure, and that's where it gets its power. So how do you actually write one of these? Well, that's a hard question to answer, and it really depends on what you like to hear. I can give you some tips like starting from scales or building off interesting rhythms, but I've generally tried to stay away from the super artistic side of things because there's no right or wrong answers there. I don't want to come off as telling you this is how you have to do it, because in the end there are no rules. So how do you write a good riff? You experiment. You keep playing with random patterns until something stands out. You can try to build in chord progressions, work with non-harmonic tones, or just write a short melody that feeds into itself. Use the tools we've covered to find lines you like, then polish them till they shine. That's really all there is to it. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you want to help make these videos possible, please consider supporting 12 Tone on Patreon. You can also join our mailing list for scans of all our episodes. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and keep on rockin'.